one of the things, of the strategies that he took up at a later stage was that when he gets into the area and he conquers, he's going to take children from the royal family. And the reason he was doing that was that he knows that when he's got children from the royal family, you won't easily come and attack. You may end up killing your own children.
So we can't confirm how many wives he's had. And
No.
if we can't do that, then you can't confirm how many kids he had.
No, not at all. King offers you meat. He says, no, he's giving me a hind leg. And a hind leg of a cow, in terms of Zulu tradition, is seen as an insult because it's known to be eaten by women.
King David Studio Podcast.
After 1795, when that has collapsed, then the Dutch decide that we must come as a unit together.
Mm-hmm.
We got nobody to go to. We rely on ourselves.
Yes.
And these guys now tell them, look, now you cannot keep slaves. You got to see how you can do whatever you do. And then they started becoming closer to the Griquas.
Okay.
Because the Griquas were the only group that were able to carry guns, that were able to mount.
Where do they find the Griquas?
You remember the story that we said earlier on about the debauchery?
Mm-hmm.
About when they first arrived
when they were
here?
creating new people.
Generation.
Let's call it that.
Yes. Now, Williams, Chris Williams, the guy who wrote the book, The Destruction of Black Civilization, compares very interestingly what happened in Egypt with what happened in South Africa.
Okay. Where are the similarities?
It says in Egypt, Black Africa was erased by the incoming of the Arabs. And when they came in, they started intermarrying with the black people. And when they were pushing them, they did not want to have, to actually encompass their own children because they were becoming ashamed of them. And so they began to do that. And they also, as the fight started to happen, they pushed the Africans further down, starting by down near the Nile and up until they had actually changed the complexion and the makeup of Africa there at the Horn. And he says this is exactly the same thing that happened in the Cape. That the fathers who disowned their children, but they still were sleeping with African women. And now they took their children and made them to fight against their own fathers.
Justice. A whole generation gets wiped
Absolutely.
out.
And now you see these similarities. And Williamson, bless his soul, says, now you look at Egypt today, people will actually fight you and kill you when you say that Egypt was black before. And he says the same thing about the Cape.
There's no trace.
If you say the Cape was once black.
Say where?
Yeah, absolutely. They will say, but no, these guys come from the Eastern Cape. Meanwhile, they were actually pushed to the Eastern Cape.
Interesting, that debate rages on of the people of the Eastern Cape must return to the Eastern Cape.
Yeah, I mean, really.
Strange.
Return to which was not your home in the first place.
You were pushed there.
Yeah, you're pushed there. Then now it's been identified as your home.
We skip history so much.
No,
as
absolutely,
a people,
absolutely. I mean, it's the same as in the Nile. I mean, the people who are now further down on the Nile are the guys whose language. I have a friend who was in Egypt recently, and he says when these guys were speaking in their local language and getting translated into English, he had so many words which sounded like Setswana. And I said, you must grab yourselves the books of Meduneter, which is what the Greeks called what do they call it? Hieroglyphics.
Okay.
Just to confuse us, as Meduneter. You see those words there, and you see the similarity with a lot of African words.
Sure.
No doubt.
The link is there.
Very much there.
Let's go back to the Griquas.
Yeah.
They can carry guns.
Yes.
Why are they
And even dressed like the
the
Dutch.
Dutch?
Yes.
Because they are closer.
They are closer to them.
Looks slightly closer. The complexion is
Correct.
lighter, and all of
Correct.
that. Longer
Yes.
hair,
Absolutely.
and the language.
And the language.
They speak
Because
Afrikaans
now
immediately.
they've picked up the language like that.
Interesting. It's not even a matter of picking up. You open your eyes as a little infant. That's the language
Yeah.
that's spoken
Yes.
around you.
Yes.
That's the language that you carry.
Correct.
And you carry on with that.
Yeah.
There's no reference to a Khoi, even Xhosa,
No,
for
no,
that
no.
matter.
No. They are seen as being second and third grade people. But what is interesting is that the Dutch then started to use the Griquas to commit atrocities.
Ooh.
When they were doing some of the slave hunting of people, they were using the Griquas.
Mm.
Until the Griquas started, they turned the guns on the Dutch.
Eh.
and now,
Revolt.
and yes, now the whole thing changed altogether.
What led to that?
I think to a large extent they realized that they were being abused
Mm.
because these guys were coming in, they were taking land, they were taking cattle, and then they were giving crumbs.
And we are the ones who did the work.
And we are doing the dirty work. I mean,
Makes
there's
sense.
a guy who's called Afrikaner,
Mm.
who was one of the most feared Griquas around. And the funny part I found about Afrikaner is that he was then convinced to convert to Christianity.
Okay.
And look and behold, who is there to convert him to Christianity?
Tell me.
Robert Moffat,
Really?
the guy who ultimately becomes Mzilikazi's friend.
Mhm. This brings us to the meeting between the Voortrekkers.
Yes.
Or the Voortrekkers, Mzilikazi.
Yes, because the Voortrekkers, as Bangadile, they move from there,
Yeah.
they go up north, they come up to the point of the Val River, Ikwa, as the Khoi called it. And which is why the Ngunis and the Soto called it Iligwa,
Mhm.
because out of that word. And now they decide that they were going to go over. And somehow there is a story that they were actually told that they must ask for permission. And they say, no, but, there's no way we ask him. We have actually been enslaving African people for so long. Now,
Yeah,
there's an
nothing.
African guy who must come. We must come and ask for permission from him. It's not going to happen. And they decide to go in by force. And meanwhile, Mzilikazi's guys were there standing and guarding that place and attack them.
Yeah.
And
beat
so
them
a
up.
couple of them get killed, and then they get the cattle and they take them with.
Is it
Hundreds of sheep and cattle
from the Afrikaner?
Yes.
Sure. Do the Afrikaner
Which they
at this-
possibly had tricked the Khoi from the
Yes,
cave
they were
when
coming.
they came in with them.
Yes.
Yeah.
do the Afrikaner at this stage, or in this stage of the story, call themselves Afrikaner?
No.
They're still
They're still the Boer and the Dutch.
in the Dutch.
Yeah, because they call themselves the farmers.
Uh-huh.
Yes.
Huh.
Although they're farming through other people's hands.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
am, if I'm CEO of a sneaker producing company,
Yeah.
I'm a sneaker maker.
Yeah, true.
I'm just in the office.
Yes.
That's life.
That's true.
How many times have people say, I'm building a house?
Yeah.
They've never touched
He
cement
doesn't
or a
know
brick.
the smell of cement.
But I'm building a house.
Yeah.
That's how life
I
works.
built these houses. True.
That's what they were doing.
Very true.
They lose the battle.
Yeah.
Is Mzilikazi?
No, here's the interesting thing.
Yes.
They lose the battle there at Voorkop. And the Mzilikazi and Amandebele have taken almost everything from them.
Sure.
And they go south. They retrack their steps
Uh-oh.
to go and look for help.
Mm.
Now, Professor Mphahlele puts it in a very interesting way. He says, when the Dutch were stranded and they were looking for help, all African kings folded their arms and looked at them and were not interested in helping them.
Why was that?
I think it is the history that they were carrying with.
The enslaving history.
Yes. And he says, the only guy who stands up and helps them is the guy in Tabanchu.
Oh.
Moroka helps them.
Why did he do it? What does history say?
Well, part of the reason is that when they came up from the Cape, they stopped over at Moroka's place
Okay.
for some time before they started with the journey again.
Mm.
So they remembered that guy and they went back to him. So they say he put together some geese and what and so on. And they say some of them were even coming barefoot.
Whoa.
When they came there, they were very miserable.
They were trapped.
It was a miserable sight.
Yes.
So he gave them some milch cows, he gave them this and that, and so they were able to put themselves together.
Do they turn back, up, or head down?
They swear to the fact that they will not give up until they deal with Mzilikazi.
Cheer. But I get the impression that Mzilikazi was always en route. He didn't build a base and stayed at this stage.
Yeah,
he was traveling.
At this stage, he had already settled a bit because the first part, he moved quite some time after moving from KZN. He had established a settlement called Ekupumuleni, which was in Mpumalanga, and which was not far from the Olifants River. In fact, the conduit of the Olifants of Lepelle and Steelport, as they call it. Tubats, Gaspedi, Tubats, Lepelle.
Yeah.
And the clever people came and called it Olifants and Steelport.
Hey.
So he was around there. And the other thing which you will notice is that Mzilikazi was always identifying sources of life. Water, rivers.
Yes.
So he was always around those places. So he left that place primarily, it looks like, because of the cold. And also because of lack of rains. And he decided that he was quitting that place. And when you quit, that's when he ended up with a settlement next to the Vaal.
Do you know, these trips are long with a car.
Yes.
I can only imagine how long they are.
On foot. Yes.
And with cattle and many, many, many people.
Absolutely.
Thousands of people that you get as you go.
Yes. And you find some of the people, you see that these ones look like they are fighters. They must join me.
Come.
Yeah, let's go.
What was it about him that drew the attention of those that joined him? Because it seems like, as you said it earlier, he left KZN, now modern day KZN, with 500 men. He died with 15,000 men.
Yes.
What was it about him that made everyone say, this is the guy?
Well, you look at the story of Tauya Muletsane, and this story is not isolated. It is about people seeking protection and seeking that level of comfort. To say, if re morenas mamang wale kwala, you know.
This is not the guy.
Yeah, no, we are putting ourselves at risk. We have to make sure that we can be able to have somebody who can help us, because Tauya Muletsane was being tormented by other people. And at one stage, he had asked the Griquas to help him fight Mzilikazi, and he sent them to Mzilikazi. Mzilikazi fought with the Griquas.
Sure.
And then afterwards, when the Griquas had moved, Tauya Muletsane was exposed again. And now
protection again.
Now he had to go back to Mzilikazi. And Mzilikazi said, no, I will protect you. I know what you have done, but I will protect you.
Did they work harmoniously?
Yeah, now they worked harmoniously from there.
It sounds like it was difficult to be a king.
Not true.
Because you were always under threat.
And always solving problems.
Sure.
Always.
Mostly problems of someone that wants to take over this thing you got.
Yes.
It sounds like that was a common challenge that you were facing.
True.
It was not a matter of, it's mine, it's solid.
Yeah.
I'm a king of the British. Or I'm king in Swatini.
Yeah.
No one is going to bother me.
No. And you see, that is why one of the things which distinguished Mzilikazi from many other people, and which was made the falling of Shaka, was that he got some of the trusted men to surround him.
Mm-hmm.
So then he knows that he's covered.
He's safe.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And so at the time when Mzilikazi died, remember, Mzilikazi, Zwangendaba, Manukosi, who is called Soshangane, and Nqaba, were all at one stage together with Mzilikazi. Were going to be, and he was going to be, but these ones were generals under Zwide.
Okay. That's long before.
Long before.
Yes.
So essentially, they come from the same household
Of the Kumalos and all of that.
Out of the Ndwandwes. They are all part
okay.
of the Ndwandwe.
Yes.
This thing, but
With small
they are Kumalos.
clans within.
Yes.
Wow.
So now, when they were scattered, all of these guys scattered, Mzilikazi at some stage meets up one more time with Zwangendaba.
So these are his old buddies.
These people that come from Zwangendaba's land, they meet up and then they decide that, no, let's all make up a solid force.
And they do.
They do for some time, and after some time, the guys decide, no, man, by the way, man, we can't be led by Mzilikazi. Yeah, no, this chap can't be, he's supposed to be hearing from us. So they split. But remember I said that when Mzilikazi arrived in Zimbabwe, he found that Zwangendaba had already passed there.
You did. Yes.
And there was also the warrior queen of the Swatis that was there. Now they settled and they made peace. Of course, they created a
bigger household.
Yes, correct. But at a later stage, when Mzilikazi died, some of the people around who had joined them, because some of them were splinters from that Zwangendaba, started to ask, but why is this kingdom only led by the Kumalos?
Oh.
So they were staring now to say, yeah, but we're here, but can you just explain to us?
Yeah, I have young people say I have a ask.
Yes.
I need clarity. On this issue.
Correct.
Why are you guys running things?
And so it came to a head that Lobengula ultimately decided that, you know what, I think this thing is going too far. Let's settle it with a spear.
Cheer. Who wins?
Lobengula wins. And the guys who were under the person who was contesting it decided that, no, okay, we'll bow our knees to you because now we see that you are the stronger person.
Interesting.
Very interesting.
A battle for power continues today in a lot of places.
Yes,
that is exactly similar.
True. Very true. But what is even more interesting is that when Lobengula now, at the time that Cecil John Rhodes torments him, he decides to run away. And he goes over the Zambezi into Zambia. He is met by Zwangendaba's children.
We've already set up base there.
Yes, because they're now there. The Ngunis who left KZN with Zwangendaba are now called the Ngonis.
Yeah, my daughter.
Amangoni to this day. And the corruption is said to have come up because of the English people.
Oh, the corruption of the name.
Of the name.
Yes.
So basically, bangamanguni nabo.
Jeez. How much credit do you give to Mzilikazi for the spread of the Nguni nation in that context? Because he played just as much a role of taking these people everywhere. How much credit does he get? Or as you put it, there are others who did it before him.
Yes, but not to that extent.
Okay.
Because the one unique thing that Mzilikazi was doing is that he was molding nations together.
Okay. When he finds particular people.
Yes.
he wouldn't assert himself or become bully.
No, he would make them to be a part of. Like now on Tuesday we were having a lunch, and one of Amabuto Gamziligas, who comes from Zimbabwe, he is Mokwena.
Ebana.
And
unlikely,
these are said to be Bakwena, who were given up by Moshweshwe at the time when he was attacked by Mziligas. He gave them cattle and some of the fighters to say, Tsamanlian. They're there. Kibakwena. But Kibakwena Bamziligas.
Jeez, that's so unexpected. Do you find that again elsewhere? That type of fusion?
Not to that extent, Mziligas. No.
Yes.
No. I mean, Hunalba Khatla. And then I get people there, I meet them in Zimbabwe. So I ask them what is their totem animal. Barinkau. So now you find these guys. No, those are some of the people who moved up with him from out here.
Let's trace him. Let's trace him again. He moves from the Paris area.
Yes, at the time of the war
where does he go?
He is in Magaliesberg at this time.
Okay.
He has chased out Bakwena more in Mutabenza Mokhale. In that one of the stories which I find in the website of Bakwena, is that he actually had kept their king hostage after he'd taken over that whole place. But the king managed to escape somehow. So when I went to the Magaliesberg, there's pictures that I've got there of the kraals that were made by the people that when he came and settled, he found them there. They are still there to this day.
What?
Of the settlements where Mzilikazi was said to have lived.
That's amazing. They kept it
going.
Absolutely.
They kept it. If you know the place called Mount Grace.
I know Mount Grace.
If you are in Mount Grace driving towards the hotel, as you drive parallel with the fence, on the left-hand side, if you see, you'll see just part of it.
Wow.
But you have to go into the hotel next door, which is called Hornbill Legend.
You get to see that.
You must go up the mountain. You will see those stones that are there in the picture.
But it's a huge trek as well from that Vaal to that side of town.
No, it is.
It's not a short trek.
I mean, his treks are huge. I mean, he was in Johannesburg at some stage.
Where about?
There's a place which was even called KwaMzilikazi next to Selby.
Okay.
Just called KwaMzilikazi because it was known that part of his people settled there.
He hung out.
Yes. To this day, there is a restaurant which serves African cuisine. It's called KwaMzilikazi.
In paying homage to that.
Yes.
Hey, man.
So the tracks, KwaMzilikazi, like Kecho, you cannot deny them.
You acknowledge him greatly in relation to other kings. Is that his trekking really what gives him that special sauce?
Well, it's a number of elements. His capability and ability to he was very calculating. He was decisive in what he wanted to have happening. I mean, from the time that he decided that he's not going to stay under Shaka, it was a major decision. It changed history.
Yeah.
When he did not want to be taking instructions in terms of, or even offerings from the king. It's unheard of. The king offers you meat. He says, no, he's giving me a hind leg. And a hind leg of a cow, in terms of Zulu tradition, is seen as an insult because it's known to be eaten by women.
Ooh.
So what is this man saying about me? So it's, and then it's this mastery of the terrain in terms of planning wars and the location of people. One of the things that he did when he got to next to Pitsiti Suleyang in Mosekga, Mosekga is just outside Zerast. When you go from Zerast, as if you're going to Mafikeng, after passing town,
I see that.
on your right-hand side, there's a sign which says Mosekga, which points to where Mzilikazi used to stay. Right there in that area, he used to tell people who want to come and visit him, they must not just come directly, which was again a military strategy. He says, there is Robert Moffat in Kuruman. You must go and seek permission from Robert Moffat. Because he knew that he had already placed some people there. If people come, but well, Robert Moffat about going to visit Mzilikazi, these chaps will sneak out and go and tell Mzilikazi there's some people coming.
Yeah.
So by the time they come, he's ready for them.
He was always on tender hooks.
Exactly.
Guarded and ready.
True. And that's why when the Boers attacked him, Mosekga, they made a different tactic in terms of that. Number one, they traveled from that area of the Vaal as if they are going to Pretoria.
Okay.
So they were taking a northern direction because they also knew they were being watched somehow. Yeah. And then they say just as they were going towards closer to the Pretoria area, they took a sharp turn and went northwest towards Mosekga.
So they are now untraceable.
They are now untraceable because the message is that they are going to Pretoria. But the settlement that he had next to Pretoria had now been raised down by Dingaan.
Who's doing what? Where's Dingaan? Why is Dingaan there now?
Dingaan is still trying to get even.
Is he chasing Mzilikazi?
Right into the so-called Transvaal.
At this time, he solved Chad.
Yes, long time.
Yeah.
Long time. By the time Mzilikazi was in Makhalis, that's when he heard that Shaka is dead.
Sure. And now he's chasing this one.
And now he starts chasing.
Crazy. Do the Boer find Mzilikazi?
They do, and they Mzilikazi. Some of Mzilikazi's army had gone to as far as almost Zimbabwe.
Okay.
They're still, they're still finding what is where and so on. Yes. And capturing cattle and army and so on. So by the time the Boers come there, they find him being shaken for two reasons. Dingaan had weakened him. They just had a big fight with Dingaan. And secondly, some of the men are not around. So the Boers are able to crack him. They are able to scatter his men. And they decide that no, whatever cattle they can get, they take back. They go back to the Paris almost place. They go past Paris. They go to a place called today called Winbeck.
Okay.
You know Winbeck.
I know it well.
And it is formed after they had defeated Mzilikazi, so to speak. And so they say they have won.
Oh.
And it becomes Winbeck.
They still had a grudge.
Very much so. Their battle did not end up there. That was the Battle of Mosekga, this one that we're talking about, where they fought against him.
And won.
And won.
But the grudge dates back to when they met in the Paris area.
Correct.
Or Dimanu will find him.
Yeah, no, we will find him. That's why now, that's where they had heard that now Mosekga was basically one of his military strategies. He had some of these people there, but he was not there. He is in that area of Pitsidisuleya, which he called Ekabeni. So they basically would have had to fight for days to be able to reach that place.
Yeah.
And by the time they are coming, he will have long gotten wind that, yes, these guys are coming.
He stands out as, for me, his nomadic character is quite unusual. Why doesn't he find a home and rest? Why doesn't he say, I'm good now? Because his trek is long.
It is.
And you said it earlier that some places he would hang around. There's not enough of this.
Yeah.
There's not
yeah.
enough of that.
Correct.
I'm moving.
Yes.
It takes him a long, long time to find a proper home.
Yes.
Which one is that home in his story?
Ultimately, it gets to be Zimbabwe.
Yes.
Matebele land. Because he was still on the move. Remember when they came the second time, the Boers, they chased him now out of Pitsidi Suleyang, Gabeni, and he went over Madikwe River into Botswana.
Okay.
And he stayed in Botswana for some time.
Another base. How much influence does he have in terms of the culture?
Huge.
What do we find
to
in
this
Botswana?
day?
What do we find?
In Botswana, to this day, you even find a lot of places named which have got Ndebele names and so on. There's a place in northern Botswana which is called Pata Yamatebele, the path of the Ndebeles where they passed.
Yeah.
There is Lobatsi, which is known to have been a place where Botswana were hiding cattle when Mzilikazi were coming, and they were saying Lobatsi.
Oh,
hide
these ones.
Yes. And you find lots and lots of anecdotes and stories like that in terms of where he passed. You find stories. He goes after he finished in Botswana. He goes into eastern Namibia, that Caprivi Strip, which is now called Zambezia.
At what stage? What does he call himself? Is he Nguni? And acknowledge my ignorance here. Is he Nguni? He's not a Zulu.
No, it's not.
He's not.
No.
What is he? The Botswanas know who they are in this context.
Yes.
Bapedi, who are of that lineage, Balubedu and all of that.
Yes.
What does he call himself as he's trekking and changing the dynamics of different places?
Yeah. Interestingly, he gets a nickname, Matebele, because he is not Ndebele.
That's why that matters to me so much. Because if you listen to the Mandebeles of Zimbabwe, their language is very much Zulu.
Yeah, true.
Is as close as Zulu to 5% difference.
The influence, yes. And in fact, what is interesting also is that some of the words that they use are still original Zulu words from KZN.
That's it.
Which is what one of the elders in Zimbabwe was saying when we were speaking to the king, to Uzwelitin. He was commenting that, Jesus, you still use those words.
Whoa.
We have our language has changed, but he says it's interesting that you've kept that language.
Incredible.
Which I found quite amazing.
Again, my question: what is he at this stage?
You see, to show that he is not truly Ndebele, but they have accepted this nickname of Ndebele.
How does he get
Ndebele.
it? How does he get the nickname?
He gets it from the time he fights against and conquers the Amandebele Gamahlangu.
That's in the modern day Mpumalanga.
Yes, in Mpumalanga and in Eastern Mamelodi.
Aha. When I saw that,
you saw the picture.
Yes, okay. And I said, that's strange. That's my hood. Mzilikazi's story has Mamelodi in it.
Yes.
What was happening
and
here?
Valman.
Yes. So he gets that name there.
He gets, because he conquered these guys, a number of these warriors, Amandebele.
Yeah.
So when they were appearing to people they were seeing Amandebele. Because he had so many Ndebeles that he then made to join his roving people.
Take over, come in.
Yes.
Let's go.
And that has not made Amandebele ga Mapena, Mandebele ga Sbindi, Mandebele ga Mkotongo. They are not happy at all. They say Mzilikazi is not a king. He found kings there and he killed them. He is a warrior, not a king.
Not a king. So they don't give him that title.
No. They say the real Ndebeles are us. He is not Ndebele. He just happened to have taken over the Ndebeles.
So they don't even till today they don't recognize
To
him
this
as their
day,
leader.
even when I was doing the research and the interview, there were some people who just point blank refused to talk to me. They say,
Because you come here saying I'm investigating about King
they
Mzilikazi.
say, "Hambe uletha abantwana bethu abathathwa umzilikazi. Come and tell us about umzilikazi."
Talking about Hambo letter into Letata Mzilikazi, there's also a Kumalo reference that was made recently. And if I'm wrong, those who know will correct me about the marriage between Ubabu Jacob Zuma and the marriage with Ekumalo. And said, finally, our kettles will come back. A commentary like that.
Yeah.
Do the Kumalo still carry any baggage from some of the deeds of Mzilikazi?
They keep getting those jabs. And I think they have accepted.
That
they are accepted, or this is what keeps on being said, from time to time. I know at one stage they did make some ceremony of almost, making peace to that extent. But yeah, it keeps coming from time to time.
But this guy.
Yeah. I mean, I know there's somebody on Twitter who was asking me, is this man a king or a cattle thief?
It is a question, isn't it?
And well, my issue is that if you want to go to the point of questioning kingdoms and kings, you have a long day ahead of you. Because there are many kings you cannot really be able to say they were really kings.
They were strong men.
The histories around them tell you that the rightful kings were not there. Moshweshwe is one of them. Sikukuni is one of them.
Yeah.
And we can go down the line. Many of them.
Did any of those kings that you mentioned now encounter Mzilikazi?
Yes, Moshweshwe did.
How was that?
That is when Mzilikazi was trying to rout Lesotho.
Okay.
And then
his story is mind-boggling. Jeez.
Yeah, and Moshweshwe defended himself by rolling the rocks.
Oh, that story.
Yes.
What is the name of that battle? Does it have a name?
Because they were fighting around Botabote. And you know who Botaka Sotukurubala.
Okay. Yes.
So it was shortly after Mantatisi had actually attacked the place, and they decided to vote Tamu as a way of hiding from her, because she was also fierce. And one thing which did not happen is that Mantatisi never got to get head-to-head Mzilikazi. Yes, we don't know what would have happened.
How did they miss each other?
One was going... Mantatisi went a little bit south before going north again. And Mzilikazi had turned next to the Val to go north.
That's when he was heading... Yes. Where he ended up in the northwest.
Yes. Correct.
Yes, man.
Yeah.
Then he gets into Botswana. Hangs around a little bit.
Yeah. And at that stage, they say he's actually formulating an empire, because now he was at one place but controlling a huge tracts of land.
Did he, after he leaves, let's talk about Val, let's talk about Kopiting, Kumamelodi, for example. Yeah. Did he get the former base, like the British did?
Yeah.
Former base.
Yes.
And then form another base there, another base there. Is that what he did? Or when he left, he just left?
No, he had huge settlements, but most of these settlements, the one next to Mamelodi was the one at a place called Wonderboom.
Till today.
Yes, you know that area. Actually, that place is the Boers who called it Wonderboom when they found that about 1,000-year-old fig tree, which is there.
Okay.
And that place was a settlement for Amandebele.
It's, well, to a large extent, still is.
Yes. No, Amandebele, when Mzilikazi took over, he actually took Mandebele out of there. So the area that he then settled in out of there, again, there was a river close by, Apis River, as they called it.
Yes.
Amandebele were calling it Enzabhlungu. because it had dolomitic water.
Okay.
So they say beyenza isisu sibe buhlungu.
Ah, yes,
Your tummy would run.
got you.
Yeah. So that was again another source of life.
Following water.
Yes, yes. Now, there is a place where people come every year. Amandebele come every year to pay homage to Mhlanga and to Musi. Because there's Musi or Msi, depending on how you call it. Because Mhlanga, just one little error there. Mhlanga died and was buried next to a place known today as Mohlakeng.
Okay. Mohlakeng or Ruizi?
Hey.
Mohlakeng Moses
Comes out of Mhlanga. It's the same name.
Ah.
So the Mohlakeng could have been Kwamhlanga.
Basically.
Yes.
But they're not next to each other.
No. But that is where he moved.
Ah.
Mhlanga moved up to that area and died there.
In Mohlakeng?
In Mohlakeng. Long before the white people came and called it Randfontein next door.
Till today, about Mohlakeng, Randfontein,
yes.
The names are used almost interchangeably.
Yeah, as if Randfontein birthed Mohlakeng. But Mohlakeng was there. I mean, when we talk about Mhlanga, we are talking many years before Mzilikas.
Yeah.
We're talking the 1400s.
What? Centuries.
Yeah, and then Mohlakeng was born after Johannesburg, 1886.
History is told very badly.
History is very drunk.
Very badly told.
Yes.
Let's go to this guy that I seem to be falling in love with. Called Mzilikas.
Yeah.
I love him as an adventurer, man.
Very, very much so.
When we thought people were discovering Africa.
Yeah, no.
Discovering the West Indies. He was doing bigger things.
Not true. Very true.
His spirit of not settling, for me, I find it exciting yet troublesome.
Yeah.
It makes me uncomfortable, like a man who doesn't quite settle in his mind. He's forever like sharp for now, and then I'll move.
Yeah.
Does he marry often? Does he have many kids? What does he do in that regard?
To be frank, a number of wives that he had, nobody's able to confirm.
Really?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because he had a number of wives, but what was very clear to a lot of people was that, and which is also something of the African tradition, that the wife that has been married to you by the nation becomes a Masechaba.
The main wife.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Baba Mbana, you can marry them, but yes. It's about
okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So then, so it was the first wives that he had married that the leader was going to come off, which is where Nkulumani
came from.
Nkulumani, which is a name from Kuruman.
Wow, there's another name.
Because remember, the Ngunis have got a problem with the R and the L. Yes. So instead of saying, because he had been to Kuruman, and it is reported that this son was born there.
Okay.
In Kuruman.
Then in Nkulumani.
And so, yes, he had to remember that he was born around those times when he used to be going around there.
Sure.
And so he was called Nkuluman.
So we can't confirm how many wives he's had. And if we can't do that, then you can't confirm how many kids he had.
No, not at all.
But you don't rock up to a place and not have kids if you're a king.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, there are various stories. I mean, some of them I say, no, I think the story I followed up to here, it's fine.
So you did that?
Yeah, no, I did that at some
like
parts.
That.
Yeah, I'd say, but I don't want to lose the main track of the story.
Because it's easy to do that.
Very, very easy.
That's why even in this conversation, I keep saying, well, let's go back to this guy.
Correct.
Because it's easy to...
No, you can detour.
Get no and
then, yeah. By the way, where were we? Yes, correct.
Oh, let's say another female king.
Mantatis.
I could have easily hung around there for another hour.
Yes. It's true. No, never.
So that was part of the challenge you had to face.
Correct. To say now, okay, I must sift this out. all that I want is to show you the link between these nations and Mzilikazi's
This man.
movement. Yes.
Yes.
Because I call him the protagonist in this story, and therefore I move with him.
There's some people who would see him as an antagonist, and those that Kuma Melody Bartiman, it was just a bulldozer.
Yeah.
There's nothing positive about him.
Not true. I mean, and for me, it depends how you want to craft your history.
Yeah.
You know, because like on the one side, the people who were writing our history had deliberately decided to take Mzilikazi out of there. He's been basically non-existent.
Does he get a mention? Or it's a passing mention?
And it's a passing mention in many of the places. Just yesterday, I was with one gentleman. He was on his way to Zimbabwe, and he was telling me that he was showing me pictures of the insignia which was used by the Rhodesian War, the Rhodesian Army.
Mm-hmm.
They had actually taken the insignia of Amahlabe Zulu, and they were using it there, and they were showing how they copied it.
Wow. It existed before they came.
Mahlabe Zulu, abo Mzilikazi.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, they bebahlabana no Zulu, so that's why babizwa Mahlabe Zulu. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And now there are people who, when they narrate the story, they say Shaka never fought with Mzilikazi. And so I say, what about the oral history and the songs? Because there are some of the songs which they sing and they admire Amahlabe Zulu. And there are even children whose names are Abu Mahlabe Zulu.
So that fight did happen.
It did happen. Where would they have picked it up?
Based on that oral history, where do they say it happened? Remember, Mzilikazi long left.
Yeah.
KwaZulu-Natal.
No, at the time when he had a fallout with Shaka, that's where bebahlabana no Zulu.
So to some people, that moment was insignificant.
Some people say it was never there. But I'm saying, how can you say it was not there when the nation's nickname is Mahlabe Zulu?
And it's captured in praise and
it's
songs.
In praise, it's there.
You can't just ignore
it. No,
it
can't be that you say this thing didn't happen.
Wow. I like Mzilikazi. Let's carry on. we are now in Rhodesia. When he leaves Botswana, where does he go?
He goes past Namibia into Zambia.
So he's on the western side of Botswana.
Yes.
Yes, because it's closer to Namibia.
No. It's more to the eastern side of Botswana.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's more to the east. And that's why he also reaches northeast of Namibia.
Got you.
That whole strip. Yes.
He finds desert land.
He finds people. There's a place called Katimamulilo, which Amandebele were calling Kwatimamulilo.
Mm-hmm.
And there are stories also around that. That people used to extinguish fires to try and not to be identified when Mzilikazi appears.
Is he at any stage of this trek known now?
No, he is now. Now he's well known.
There's this guy.
Yeah, is well known. Save your skin, because there's a place in Botswana where they say some of Botswana, they ran right deep into the desert and went and relearned how to live the ways they used to live before.
How to live in the desert. Running away from this
Running away from, no, there's no way we can do this.
Would you record him as a peaceful person?
Well, the times were not peaceful in themselves.
Okay.
It's like people who talk about Shaka and they say that he was a man of peace. And I'm saying, but I think he would have been killed long time if he was a man of peace in that times, which were very troubled.
Yeah.
And this is the other thing which comes to your question about what makes you to be a king. When you are able to make a distinction between when to stand and fight and when to declare that, no, this one we won't win, and so on. Because it was the types of decisions that he was making that were able to make him to survive. I mean, one of the things, of the strategies that he took up at a later stage was that when he gets into the area and he conquers, he's going to take children from the royal family.
Okay. I've heard about that.
And the reason he was doing that was that he knows that when he's got children from the royal family, you won't easily come and attack. You may end up killing your own children.
I've heard about that. That's a very interesting strategy.
Absolutely.
To say they are in the house.
Yeah, no, true.
And you want to come back and retaliate.
Yeah.
Your
And
kids
so,
are here.
I mean, and they say there's a lady I interviewed in Zambia, and she was saying, no, in Zimbabwe, she says they originally come from Botswana.
Okay.
And in the area where they were, their great-grandfather were some of the people who were captured by Mzilikazi as the children of the royal house. So when Mzilikazi found them and he saw them when they are dressed, that they are part of the royal family, he said, grab those ones. We're going with them. So they ended up in Zimbabwe.
They never went back home.
They never went back home. But she was telling me that whenever they go back home to go and visit, they are treated as royalty still.
Incredible.
They are taken to all those because they know their story, how they moved.
How they were captured.
Ended up living with Mzilikazi.
What a guy.
Absolutely.
How much time does he spend in Namibia?
Namibia, it looks, you see, because this is the trick with us, because as we speak, we are speaking about it, thinking of the borders.
Yes, I'm aware, but it
Yeah.
makes it easy to tell the story.
Yes.
Because there are no borders.
Yeah.
This is a guy who's
Correct.
that's why I said you could have easily named this book The History of the Southern Africa.
Yes.
Because that's
correct.
where it
Yeah.
happens.
Mhm.
It's a SADC region.
Not true. It's,
Yes.
it's a SADC history.
Uh-huh.
So
Told from a story of this man.
of the one man,
Yeah.
And I mean, which other person do we have who is you are able to tell a story like that? None.
Yeah.
This is for people who say that I'm biased. I say, but I'm not even Ndebele, so
Motswana.
ke Motswana, mokgatla wa Kafela,
Wana
ke ana Kgabo, e namela setlhare ja borego.
There's even a song. I
A e je borego.
Yes.
Eh.
Wow.
So now the Namibia Botswana, I think he was basically treating it as one.
Okay.
Because the time, in terms of the narrations that one got, is that he was moving in and around that place in the same time.
Okay.
But at the time he decided to leave there, because the interesting thing is that when he got into Botswana, they split into two groups.
Okay.
He got the one group to go of children with some of the warriors. They must be accompanied. They went straight to Zimbabwe.
Wow.
And
So there are
then-
people who got there before him.
Yes, there were people who got there before him, which included even his sons, because that's why the children were moving with the warriors. They went there.
Yeah.
And then he went northwards towards Zambia. Because the story I hear from the Zambians is that they had some of the most well-grown breed of cattle.
Wow.
And he had seen them at one stage and said, we must get those cattle.
That's why some call him, he was just a guy who was stealing cattle.
But you must remember that cattle was currency.
Big currency.
Yes.
Probably even greater than land.
No, to a large extent.
That's why land you could hang around and leave.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And so he then decided he was going to chase those cattle and he's going to ask those guys, try and capture those people. But Makololo made up a plan. Because Makololo, like I said, they were coming from the Free State and went up to there. But they were also a breakaway from Mantatisi.
Okay.
One of the guys who
The lady
was
queen.
Yes, who
Yeah.
was part of a part of Mantatisi was Sebetwane. Now they were used to the flood area of the Zambezi,
Okay.
because that place is very interesting. That when we were driving towards the northwesterly part of Zambia, there are parts you travel and you find you can't travel any further. You have to turn
Okay.
because that's where the river meanders.
Mm.
So it almost like leaves your road. Then it's going to meander again. You come. Yes.
Okay.
And then some of the roads, when it floods, when the Zambezi floods, you can't go at all.
Because the water is higher than the road.
Correct,
Yes.
correct. So now, and those are the dirt roads anyway, because in the main road is the one that goes parallel and follows the Zambezi. Now, when I was supposed to go to the area where Mzilikazi had fought Makololo, I was in the northwestern part of Zambia. And so I had to go to the southern part, closer to Namibia.
Okay.
But we had to go the long way around because the river had flooded.
Jeez.
So it was a long journey.
Do you get to the story then?
I did get to the story. I did get to the people. This is why you take 5 years or something like this.
Yeah.
Because now you are told you must go and meet so and so. He knows the story. We travel for almost half a day. We get there. The man doesn't want to speak. No, he's just not trusting.
Oh.
Or they are bringing this guy. He cannot even speak the local language, and he comes here under the pretense or what is this?
Who are you?
So I go and I sit in the car a bit, and I leave this guy to talk in the local language with this chap. So he tells this chap, hey, there were once people who came here and they wanted to take our land. And they were coming with some stories we didn't understand. So when you come with this man here, I think is the part of the same group. Because that land which is there was taken away from us under the same thing. So then he fetches me from the car.
No, okay.
Now all is fine.
You can talk.
Yeah, now you can talk.
Yeah, no land issues.
Yeah, then he tells me, no, he's busy with the book, research for the book. And then, in fact, the one guy, I took a picture with him.
There's one Ellie in the but this is this.
Yes, that's the one.
Is it this one?
That's the one.
This guy.
Yes.
He was not trusting.
Yeah, no, he was not trusting. He had to be spoken to agree to talk. And you see what that school is called? It's in Zambia.
Land.
Yes.
Matebele Primary School.
Yes. In Zambia.
Incredible. Wow. So he obviously hung around long enough
in
Zambia to establish another base.
Yeah, so no, in Zambia then he was blocked basically, the Zambezi. So he couldn't go across the Zambezi because he wanted to get to where the king was.
So he never got
He never got there because he was tricked. The story goes there in Zambezi that Makololo offered him a boat which had holes. Offered his
so he doesn't. So they can't cross.
Yeah, so they would sink. And they saw the trick later, and some of the guys managed to, because you see when it floods, you find some semi-islands form.
Because they're higher.
Yes. So the guys would be there, but they are stuck. There's no food. There's nothing. And they're deciding, hey, we're going to have to go. Some of them took their chances, swam, others drowned. And then so he saw this is a futile thing. We better go back to where we were.
He had people who completely believed in his mission.
True. Very true.
Like who would die for this man?
Absolutely. And those are the warriors that are, even to this day, are spoken highly of.
And I hear also that warriors whose towns and places are named after these warriors.
Correct.
Is there one that stands out?
The gentleman who, when my last visit to Zimbabwe, came to fetch me at the airport is Gobalanda Mati, who was the name of his trusted Sangoma.
Whoa.
and great warrior. And I mean, what I like is like in Zimbabwe, like in KZN, they call each other with Itakazelo. And you know immediately who is that, and so on, and you know them in the order, in the hierarchy in terms in relation to the king.
The Ndebele people who are in Zimbabwe, are they called Mandebele because of of Mzilikazi.
Yes.
He's the one that brought this.
Yes. But also interesting is that other people who are not Ndebele, they are like Bakata that I told you of, and Basotho.
Those he got as he was getting there.
And the Kalangas who are under him. But when they're all looked at, they're called Ndebele.
All of them?
Yes. But when you are doing your own thing there, you can be a Kalanga. But when you come into the big fold, you are Ndebele.
The Ndebeles and the Shonas have a very troubled history. What is the source of that trouble?
I think it runs very deep. Because interestingly, at one stage, the Ndebeles and the Shonas did fight on one side against against Cecil John Rhodes,
the British.
But the fallout, to a large extent, happened just after Zimbabwean independence.
With Robert.
Yes. And that has not come to rest. I mean, the current president is trying to his best to see how he can be able, but it's not. The feeling is that he's not getting to the heart of where the problem had been, and actually even starting by apologizing and paying retributions for the things that have happened.
There are
so
many.
I don't. It's a difficult path to cross.
And some who tell you the story from the Ndebele perspective will say he is the main character.
Yeah, well, he was a general at that time. Yeah. So they find it very difficult. And that's why even he will find it very difficult to dissociate himself from the story. You know, I mean, it's like even here in South Africa, when you find people that you know to have been part of the private armies and the Kufud and so on, being the ones who now stand up there and say, let's unite.
JNU.
I speak no further.
It is tricky.
Yeah.
Because they're still amongst us.
Yes.
They're still here.
No, true.
The guys who would come to Mamelodi in hippos and chase us around and build a military base at the top of the hill in almost all townships in the country.
Correct.
They're still here.
They're still here.
They're just older.
Yeah.
Because then they had to join the military, conscription.
Yeah.
But they were 18, 19, 20. They're still here.
No, they are. They are.
It's 30 years later, so they're in their 50s.
There has never been, and I think that is the atrocity, or rather the sad part of the histories in Africa by and large. Because you go to places like Germany, the guys said, we don't care. You are 80 years old. We know what you did.
Let's talk about
Come and account.
Yes. It doesn't matter.
No, it does not matter. You know, tell us what you remember. You know, tell us about the guest houses and so on. And
tell us about Flag Plus.
Yes. And we don't do that. I mean, even and I touch a bit about the question of Orania. That we passed over it so quickly. And even with the TRC, which did not really take us far in terms of people even disclosing of what is it exactly they did and why they did these things.
It was chapter 1.
Yeah, so we haven't, that has not been, I mean, that's why even now there is a talk about a dialogue. But this dialogue will not take us anywhere as long as people are not coming up clean.
To say, this is what I did.
This is what I did. This is what happened. This may have been the circumstances under which I did it, but this is exactly what I did.
And what's sad for me is time is not on our side.
No, not at all.
Every minute we lose, we also lose the people who were part of that story.
Yeah.
Your de Klerks of this world lived in this democracy.
No, they did.
Your P.W. Botha, your Peg Botha, and many.
Yeah.
Voter Bason. They lived in this time with all of us.
Yeah.
And they're no longer there to tell the story.
Yeah, and some of them were bravely telling, like the TRC, that I'm not going there.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not coming.
For what?
Yeah, no. That's something you formed without even telling me. Do it. I'm not
Go ahead.
Angis.
Yeah, Andis.
Yeah.
Yeah, we lose that and it'll be lost forever.
Yeah, and I suppose this is part of the reason that people are scared of history.
Mm.
You know, because they feel history opens up old wounds. But the truth is that you think of 1976 and you think of the number of people who suddenly disappeared
Mm.
and who are unaccounted for.
Yeah.
And then you have got children who grew up without fathers and mothers and so on. And no explanation is given to them.
Mm-hmm.
And my argument is that sometimes we wonder why the crime in South Africa is so violent. But you're sitting with people who have got deep-seated pain, and they want an avenue where they can take it out.
Outlet.
And they, the outlet gets to be people who look like them.
Mm-hmm.
And for as long as we do this, we have not gone through a psychotherapy as a nation.
A reflection of a pain.
No,
because this was
absolutely.
as it is documented, that it was a crime against humanity.
Yes.
It was one of the most heinous crimes of the history of humankind.
Yes, yes.
It falls in the same categories as the Nazis against the Jews,
Yeah.
and so forth and so forth and so forth.
Mm.
And yet, it almost looks like very little was done to get to grips with it. You know?
No, I mean, and what makes it worse is when some of the leadership tells us that apartheid was not so bad. And, you find that you've lived through this thing. You have experienced it firsthand. And we were living across a street that the guys on this side of the street are having the protection of the same system which goes over the street and harasses and kills and massacres these ones.
Imagine that.
And then these guys who have had the hard end of the stick are told, let's move on.
Yes. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, I mean, really, it's now 30 years and you are not moving. And I'm saying to a whole lot of people, well, go and tell that to the people of Bipato and see how they receive you.
Yes.
Go and tell that to Tatani's children.
A mother who lost a child.
Yes.
Whose names, some of them, are not documented.
Not true. Go and tell that to Steve Biko's children and grandchildren.
Yeah.
Or they must move on.
They must move on.
Yeah.
Jeez.
And we are hooked by blood with all of these people. And so when you tell us as a collective, when there was a time when we could not even go to the graveyard.
Yes.
You were shot at for going at the graveyard to go and bury a guy who has been assassinated. Yeah, and then you must move on.
Sure. Hey, you're bringing another one.
Yeah, no, it's
because that one, unlike them Ziliga's story,
yeah,
is old history. This one is alive.
Yeah, it's recent history.
It's alive.
Yes.
It's here now. We live through it. Kids whose families' poverty is difficult to break. It's traced to those atrocities of apartheid. You go straight to it and say that's what happened. My great granddad had a beautiful house in Sophiatown.
Yes.
And he was kicked out to Meadowlands.
It was raised down.
And he didn't have anywhere to go, And we struggled from that moment on.
Not true.
Or he got killed and we struggled from that moment on.
I read in the book Ntate Sobu, Motsokupeko.
Okay, yes. Isolate.
He used to fail history at school. And the reason he was failing history is that he was answering history according to what he knew from his parents and grandparents. And then the history he was getting at school was something else. And so whenever he would write a paper, he would fail.
Yeah.
And he knew that, no, this is not correct.
What I'm telling you is
true. This is a fact that I got from the family and it has been passed on. And he says, like the time when they were being moved and they were expected to kill the cattle because they were told they can't go with them because Maburu never inkela tsona.
Okay, yes.
So you either had to slaughter them or you
Or
just
leave them.
or leave them, or the ones that whenever you can't leave, you must just kill them.
Yeah.
I mean, they would slaughter. They wouldn't slaughter for entertainment. So they would slaughter because it was for food. But when they're given a timeline, which were normally unreasonable timelines, then they find themselves having to, just for the fun of it, kill the cattle, and these guys are coming and taking the land.
Sure.
I mean, those are the things which Saul Blackie writes about. You know, and we have not spoken about these things.
Yeah. It's the most frustrating thing for me because I've become a historian.
Yeah.
I can't help acknowledge those moments and just move on.
Yeah. No.
And that's why these stories matter to me, that I hope kids will find them. I hope young people will find them.
Yeah.
And they'll draw something from the stories and say, "Geez, is that what happened?"
Yeah. Yeah. True.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Because my young 40-year-old dad who grew up in Soweto didn't tell me because he doesn't know.
He doesn't know.
Or his reference is very little.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also he's part of the Let's Move On brigade.
Yeah. True. True.
And more we end up having the Let's Move On people than those that says, and then you'll have those that say, Ghana, when we go back, what are we trying to do with that?
Yeah.
Are we trying to solve anything?
Yeah. Yeah.
Or as we called it earlier, we're just opening up old wounds.
Yeah.
And we cry because that's what the TRC was all about. It was tears all around.
Yeah.
And then what?
Yeah. I mean, you see, the Black Americans have found a way, and sadly, some of the history we are starting to be taught by Black Americans because we are starting to neglect our history so much. And they have realized, because their younger generation was starting to get seriously lost. I mean, I remember some Jamaicans saying that, no, we are not Africans.
Oh,
you know,
we can't possibly.
Yeah, we couldn't possibly be part of that.
You know, when they see pictures of Africa.
Yeah, you know. And so a lot
crazy.
of Black Americans have deliberately started that process of saying, know where you come from and know who you are. And don't be ashamed to tell your children.
Yes.
And for us, this thing like Mzligas is a story which is going against the grain. The grain is, let's tell as little of the African history as possible so that we can help the process of forgetting.
That's true. We forget it, it disappears.
It disappears. So, because now, I mean, the interesting thing, maybe I can ask you if you know a person called Muramunyane. I found with my eldest siblings, they were taught about Muramunyane at school.
Which schools? Is it Bob schools?
No, yeah,
South
Africa.
Schools.
Yes,
Okay.
South African schools. And this is the irony of it.
During apartheid?
During the heart of apartheid.
Wow. What is the story of Muramunyane and why are you surprised?
Well, it's because Muramunyane in Lesotho, they have, they used to have memorial lectures to Muramunyane. Muramunyane is the person who molded Mushweshwe.
Okay.
And who made him to be what he got to be. And he taught Mushweshwe philosophy.
What?
Believe it or not.
Of all things.
Yes.
Where was he getting it?
This is some of the because there had not been any white people that they had interacted with at that time. This Mfakani, he predicted it.
Wow.
Years before it happened. And it was, I think part of his wisdom was out of his travel. He used to but he also used to travel quite a bit. It was out of some of the readings that I found out of Muramunyane that he said that because remember?
Okay, yeah.
And to a lot of people, when you say Bakwena, they try and make a separation of Bakwena, ba Lesotho le Bakwena ba Phokeng. These are one people.
It just happened to be in different parts of
They
the
are
world.
one people, but they had been moving. And that's what Ramanyane said, that he used to go to his roots in the areas of Phokeng. He calls it by a different name. But that's where they used to be. That's why even their praise singings, Batuba Puka, it's said exactly the same way in Phokeng as it is said in Lesotho.
Wow.
Same people.
Incredible. You surely in history you find that a lot.
Yes, yes.
The separation.
Yes.
Even in modern history.
Even in modern history.
Where you find the mining communities of Orkney and some in Rustenburg where they're Xhosa speaking people.
Yeah.
It's that exact thing where the separation got so solidified.
Not true.
And they just never gone back home.
No, absolutely. and you must remember also, I remember at one time, Molope in his craziness, one time was threatening the Xhosa speaking people because they came there. There's a place next to where Mzilikazi used to stay, which is called Kayakulu. And most of the people who were there were Xhosa speaking, came after the time of the wars.
Yeah.
And they looked for a place to settle and ultimately found that one. And Molope used to threaten them that he will chase them out of his land.
Yeah.
Yes.
It sounds very like Molope to
say
that.
And you find that a whole lot of people, and because again it's because of our history not being taught. Like you say, people get surprised, okay, we're now almost Sotho guy. And then because they cannot make a connection, they think, I don't think. The story you were telling me about Katsesimenya.
He's from Malawi and all of that.
Yes. And then, then you get surprised, but But if you start going deeper into our histories, then you realize this is exactly what it has been.
Xenophobia as a word that is attached to South Africans is a tricky word to use because a world without borders doesn't create different people. It creates one nation. However, culture, language, and so forth tends to separate us. When you look at that word in the modern day Africa that we live in, let me talk SADC. How do you feel about South Africans being regarded as xenophobic people and who don't like other Africans?
This is almost like something that has been taught. This Afrophobia more than xenophobia.
Exactly.
Because I know when I was growing up, there were people who were living with us from Malawi, Bopiri, and so on. There were a whole lot of those. There was never an issue. The problem which is here currently for me, it's more of an economic problem.
Yeah.
And it has shifted away from what it is. Because the economic problem is brought by other people who are sitting on top of the economy at the moment. And so we are fighting over crumbs in this economy. And again, the easiest target is the person closest to you who looks like you.
That's it.
Because we never had that.
And whom you can label and say he's not from here.
Yes.
Yeah.
But you see, even this thing of labeling is not a new thing. It's been happening for years and years, but it never led to this level of
animosity. Yeah.
People used to move across and they knew where to find help. For example, Matiwana Mangwane, they used to torment Mushweshwe.
Jeez.
Until Mushweshwe decided, no, I can't take this. I'm going to have to go to Shaga and ask for protection. Now, these people were not speaking the same language, but they were able to understand each other.
This is a Sotho man.
This is a Sotho man.
And a Zulu man.
Yes.
who was saying, I have a problem.
Yes.
Come and help.
Kamahlubi.
Uh-huh.
Because Matiwa na Mangwane are more of Hlubi connections, Kamo.
Okay.
But he went to Shaka and he got the protection and they became friends from there.
Jeez.
Now, you could say that some of them were foreigners in that context.
Mm-hmm.
But they were accepted or no, we can be able to
work together.
to coexist.
Yeah.
I mean, same thing as Mantatisi's son, when Mantatisi was now dead. Mantatisi's son was cornered by the Boers,
Okay.
who then said to him, you must go and steal the Khomutsa Dingaan. And then he stole them, but never surrendered them to the Boers.
Pretty much what says
Yeah.
what Mzilikazi did.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So now they went to him, they said, we've got a gift for you. And then they say, we've got some bangles which we want to give you as gift. And they put handcuffs on his hands.
Yeah.
And they say, now tell us where the cattle are, otherwise we are going to take you back to Dingaan.
Sure.
Now, you see, that was part of the start of turning each other. And again, it's about the currency, about the wealth.
Mm-hmm. It's about the crumbs.
Yes. So we must send you to go and fight against your own. But
while we take
this, yes, this is with us.
Crazy. Do you know where you started and said we grew up amongst different nations as kids? Almost direct front opposite to my mother's house in Mamelodi, actually next door to that house. There were people from Malawi. As a result, my Chichewa, what you call vocabulary,
yes,
has a few words.
Wow.
From that, and I was a kid. Bo Ankoro, Murubuanj, Telebuino, all of that stuff.
Wow.
I learned as probably a 7-year-old kid.
Yeah.
Because there was a family that lived right opposite us that spoke Chichewa all the time.
Yeah.
And it's right to say that there was a time when this division wasn't so bad.
No, not at all.
It didn't make us look at each other funny.
No.
Hugh Masekela has a song Stimela that calls all these nations together who came to this country to come and dig the shiny gold and diamonds under the ground.
All being used and then turned against each other.
And that continues today.
It continues today. That's why I emphasize on the issue of Afrophobia. Because the number of Pakistan foreign nationals who come here and who find creative ways of getting documentation and so on, they don't seem to be a problem in the equation.
Including those of European descent.
Most, I mean, at the time towards the end of apartheid, de Klerk at one stage was bringing 40,000 people of European descent at a time.
Wow.
Trying to build up the vote base.
Imagine that.
Yes. They were given free citizenship like that.
And they're still here.
Yeah, and they're here. And I mean, when you say we don't look that way. We look in the house.
We look at the color that looks
in our
like
own
ours.
house.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, because the history of Mzilikazi breaks down the Afrophobia.
It does.
Completely.
It does.
It says it's nonsense.
True.
Because here's a man who traveled everywhere, settled everywhere.
Yeah.
And made Southern Africa just one country.
Yeah, it was one piece.
Literally from the Cape all the way to Zambia.
Yes.
That's crazy.
It's you cannot think of it. And 1838 is the year they chased Mzilikazi out, Nabur, from across
into Rhodesia,
into Botswana.
Okay, yes.
It was going out of the northwest, going over Madikwe into Botswana. Do you know there was no established town in the Transvaal before 1838? Before Mzilikazi was chased out.
So he left nothing.
No. What I mean is the Boers were only able to establish the first town after Mzilikazi was chased out.
Is there a direct link to him not being around to them being able to do that?
Absolutely. because that was the first time, especially in the Transvaal, that they started to go wild in taking land.
Ah,
Because now the big stumbling block was gone.
this guy.
Yes. So the first town which was established in 1838, Potchefstroom,
Hmm.
which is where they were. Because, by the way, the headquarters was not Pretoria, it was Potchefstroom.
Really?
Yes.
You,
Hendrik-
you
Hendrik
find the
Potgieter.
building. You find the buildings.
Hendrik Potgieter came from there. And that place is actually named after Potgieter.
Mm-hmm.
Pot for Potgieter, the chief of the army, Stroom, the river that he lived next to, which is the Mooi River. that mall in Potch is built on the Mooi River. That's why they call the Mooi Plaza.
Amazing.
So then now it's called Potchefstroom.
I didn't know it was the first town.
First time they established. First town.
So
1838.
Now they could proper settle.
Yes.
And that's the beginning of
the enemy is gone.
And that's the beginning of what becomes South Africa.
But
let me say what is Transvaal, I guess.
Transvaal.
Yes.
And major land grabs.
Wow.
They start you can read on the different books, especially in the Transvaal, when the Boers went rogue in taking land. It started after Mzilikazi was chased out.
Where are the British at this time?
The British were basically waiting and looking and waiting for this Afrikaner thing to collapse.
Okay. On its own.
On its own. And unfortunately, whilst they are still waiting for these guys, because they knew they were going to go rogue somehow and so on, diamond gets discovered.
Kimberley.
Boom, boom, boom. Langlaagte comes, gold gets discovered.
Oh boy.
Langlaagte. Long laughter.
Who's laughing last?
They are laughing last because now that's where they found gold. And they call the place Langlaagte.
Incredible.
They are having long laughters of having now discovered something under the ground where we just hope these guys would go. But now we are here. We're going to look for this place.
And we have to bear in mind that, and I guess a point that was made earlier, the Boer had nowhere else to go.
No, absolutely.
This was home now.
That's when they started to say they now identify with Africa. They are Afrikaners.
Afrikaners.
Yes. Now they gave away this thing of Boer. We can't say because
we're not leaving.
We're going nowhere.
There's a comedian that says he doesn't understand the concept of Black Americans or African Americans because he says what happens to a guy who's white, who's Afrikaans, who lives in South Africa, and who would move to America. What should he call himself? A white American? What? Because he's got nowhere else to go. His home is Africa.
No, true. It's a tricky one because, and which is something I always say that, if I was to live with my kids or with my wife here, and we get a child who gets birthed in China, that child would never be Chinese.
Never. They would never even call him African Chinese.
No.
They would clearly not Chinese.
Yeah, no. But in Africa is the only place where nationality is automatic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when you come here and you live here for a year, you've got a claim to the land. You are now African.
Sure. Is it a kindness? What is it?
Yeah, I think it. We have always been very receptive people, and we have paid a big price for it. It is an African that I can come to your place and you don't offer me water. It doesn't happen.
It sometimes extends to food.
It extends way beyond.
To the last meal we have, we share with our guests.
Correct.
I remember visiting Bahamashabela in Hamashabela. And I remember them saying, you will sleep in that bedroom. I didn't realize that it was the main bedroom.
Wow.
It was the bed that belonged to the the elders in the family.
Wow.
They found another place to sleep somewhere in the house.
Sure.
And I'm a guest. I'm there. I'm good. I don't know what's going on. I realize in the morning
How odd
when I
is
wake up and they're getting me water to wash and all of that.
Yeah.
And now they need to use it because they need to get stuff from it.
Yes, yes.
That's when I realized,
Sure.
oh no, I would have said no.
Yes.
Had I known, I would have said, no, you don't have
correct,
to.
Correct.
I'll sleep with the kids.
Yeah.
And that's exactly where our generosity
Not
gets in the
true.
way of our own progress.
Not true. True.
We give up everything.
No, but you know, the level of our empathy has been to that extent that there is no way you're going to walk by a guy who's hungry and you just pretend like you never saw that. You know, and that's why when the modern society behaves the way it does, it feels so painful.
It goes against our natural instinct.
Absolutely, because you know from your teachings as a youngster that there are certain things which are just taboo. You don't do that. You don't stand up and have a shouting match with your father or your mother.
No, never. With an elder who's strange.
Yes.
You don't.
You just don't.
You keep quiet.
Yeah.
You bow and look down and accept the moment for what it is and move on.
Yeah, and move on.
Learn the lesson if there's any lesson to learn.
But I mean, I suppose we there are so many things that we have spoiled that it's so difficult to even reverse them.
Do you know, interesting, I had a commentary. We're having a very brief discussion with some people about the Julius Malema and EFF's struggle of growth now with what the dynamics. And some people said that there was this older lady who said, I cannot vote for Julius.
Yes, I've seen that.
And I was wondering, and the question was, why can't you? And the reaction was, how he behaves to elders is against my understanding of how any young person should behave against the elders.
Not true.
Ubathathela phansi, respect, and that speaks to the fundamentals of the character of an African child.
No, correct.
You bow down, accept, and move on.
Yeah. I mean, the concept of Ubuntu, it's a very deep concept, and it's like it's getting hijacked now by different people.
Yeah.
Because boto, seto, you know, it's a concept which is not easy to explain in English.
They call it humanity.
No,
they call it kindness. They call it I don't know.
No.
Yes.
I mean, when we see you demonstrating and you just pass water there, no. Anaboto.
Yeah.
Now, are you saying he doesn't have humanity?
No, that's wrong. The interpretation is incorrect.
It's absolutely incorrect.
That's more like it.
Yes.
Here's something as we conclude.
Yes.
In my investigation, I got someone that said, ask about the class structures that were created by the Mzilikazi kingdom of the Ndebele people.
Yes.
That you find classes in society, whether they're divided through language, however they're classes, those are more important than others, and so forth and so forth. And they spoke of the Nguni, the Entla, and the Hole.
Yes.
What is that?
He had what was generally referred to as the aristocracy, which was that pyramid. The guys he moved with from KZN.
Day one fans.
Yes.
They call day one fans.
But he also looked at them as the strongest warriors.
Okay.
And the guys who were in the inner circle, which is where the question you were asking earlier around, trusting and so on.
Yes.
Those were the Entla.
Yeah.
They were basically right at the top of the pyramid.
Okay.
And then he had the second line, which were the Sotho-Tswana people.
Okay.
That he conquered on the route.
Yes.
So the reason he also got them to be part of that aristocracy is that they knew the terrain.
Of course.
Yes.
Their home.
Yes.
Yeah.
And one of the things which was quite unique about what Mzilikazi did is that he allowed them to keep their culture and traditions and so on. And which was a way of intelligence as well. Because if you come and grab in, you find people speaking Zwana and so on. And you can't use these are not part of him.
So it's easy to pick up.
No, yeah, if they were speaking in the belly, they say no, definitely these are our enemies. But now you find guys doing their food, cooking their own type of food, dressing their own way, speaking Setswana. I say, no man,
You can't. So he wasn't doing that.
No. He was allowing them, so they were blending with the environment. And then so he kept them to be the second line.
Yes. Yeah.
The last tier, and which is perhaps also where people are still having gripes, were the Kalanga Shona, which he found there.
Oh.
So they became the last tier.
So the history that we speak of that is modern now is almost a reversal of that. It's the revenge. It's the revenge of Mzilikazi.
But it's been taken too far. In my view, it's been taken too far because the Sotho-Tswana people should then also rise up.
Pretty much.
Because they were, I mean, even there's so many stories, like it's impossible to repeat
to do
all
everything.
of them.
Yes.
But basically, there was a time when there was an infiltration into Zimbabwe by the Boers, and they were able to get into Zimbabwe.
Jeez, they went that far.
They went that far.
They clearly didn't do well.
They didn't do well. Yeah, no. He managed to deal with them.
Yeah.
But after that happened, he also had to learn his own lesson.
Which is?
He took his guys to go and attack the Boers in Oringstad.
What is he revenging?
Yes, he wanted to get his back, to fight back. But then he also learned very quickly that you don't follow a snake in its hole, because then he was chased out. But then after the two agreed that they will make peace, and which is again another part of his brilliance. He established something which they called the two kiris approach.
What is that?
He got two royal sticks, or whether it's a royal stick that he broke into two, but they could actually fit snugly into each other. Then he gave this one to the Boers, and this he kept. So when the Boers were sending somebody to come and talk to him, they had to show their credentials. So that stick, yes, they must match.
It was almost like an ID.
Yes.
Let's see your...
Yes. So once they matched, he said,
that's intelligence.
That's absolutely.
If you don't have it.
If you don't have it, no. Or if you've come with a different stick and it can't match.
You are not the guy.
Yeah, you're not the guy. And you may even face the ultimate penalty.
You may not leave this. Wow. That's incredible.
That's incredible.
Quick question. Are the British giving true account of Mzilikazi's story?
They are not. But to an extent, I find some of them trying to find amends of what has happened with their story. Remember when they took over there in Zimbabwe? They took thousands of cattle. Actually, I have an article that I have quoted from a British newspaper, which spoke about the number of cattle that they took when they left there. And they were royal cattle that they were taking.
Yeah. So they were taken from the kingdom?
From the kingdom.
Huh.
And they've never taken a responsibility that they will actually find a way of replacing or paying people for those cattle.
Jeez. So it's a story that it easily would rather forget.
No, they would absolutely. I mean, it's like when Rhodes was going to attack there, the royal house knew what Rhodes was going to do, but they pretended like they were not aware. They pretended like Rhodes had gone rogue. he just decides to go and attack people and so on.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, they knew very, very well what is it that was happening there.
Did Rhodes and Mzilikazi ever cross paths?
No, because Mzilikazi died in 1868, and it took 2 years before they put his son in power, which was Lobengula. And incidentally, that 2 years, that 1870, when his son was taking up power, was the year Rhodes arrived in South Africa.
So, but Rhodes traveled from the Cape all the
Yes.
way to Rhodesia.
No, traveled to Kimberley.
To Kimberley.
Started with the diamonds.
Of course.
Started by selling ice cream.
Oh, yes, because they even named different places.
Yes.
After the queen or the king at the
Yes.
time and all of that.
Correct.
But
he planned to dethrone Lobengula from Kimberley.
did that work?
Yes, that's how
Of
he
course.
ultimately toppled him.
That's why we have Kimberley.
Yeah.
The first town in South Africa to have electricity.
Which was supposed to have been the most modern and the biggest city. It was supposed to have been the Johannesburg.
True.
But they just milked it all the way.
Yeah.
Now it's just left with the Grootgat.
There it is.
Yeah.
Now it's a tourist attraction.
Unbelievable stuff.
It doesn't even look particularly great anymore.
No, not at all.
Incredible. The Battle of Soshangan.
Yes.
Let me ask about that as we close. Tell us about that. What is that battle?
Usoshangani was Manukuza or Manukosi, depending who calls of him. Manukuza kazikode kagaza.
Okay. Wow.
Now you're hearing about Gaza, the province in Mozambique, and you're thinking of Gazankulu.
Same guy.
Which are all related to yes. So Gaza was the grandfather of Manukuza.
Yeah.
So that's why when he came to Mozambique, he named that place after his grandfather, Gaza. Now, Usoshangani was one of the generals, as I had said earlier, Zwide Kalanga. But when they were scattered by Shaka, he started attacking people. The Ronga, Tonga, Tsonga people.
Okay.
There was nothing called Shangan people. No. Almost like Shaga. That name, Shangan, it's only now of recent that people are acknowledging it. But it had generally been accepted as an insult. Because...
For the longest time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the Tonga and Tsonga people were mainly traders.
Okay.
And they were farmers. And when he had run away from Umlilwan, you remember now Umlilwan.
I get it.
He started attacking all those people that he found there.
Sure.
And he kept on stating as he was moving, they say...
What area is that modern day?
Remember, Soshangan came from he was part of the Ndwandwe. So think of that area from Nongoma.
Okay.
Going up to almost as if you're going to Mozambique. In fact, if you go that area of northern KZN, there's a place called Tembuland.
Okay.
You know about Tembu?
Yes, of course.
Yes. Yeah. But not the Tembus of Eastern Cape.
Yes.
Okay. That is the area that he actually had been moving through. To this day, if you go there, there's a lot of Tsonga and Tonga which is spoken. And some of it now is blended with the Nguni language.
Okay.
But if you speak Sitsonga, you will be able to communicate with them.
Can hear.
Yeah. You know, but the dialect is very different. You have to be, have a sharp ear to be able to hear that, no, this is very different. So he was moving around all those areas. And they say he was just attacking people then, basically wielding his power, saying uzoshaingana.
Okay. Taking over.
Yes. And then taking these people and moving with them. And he moved with them into what is today's Mozambique.
Ah.
And he established the Gaza Republic. And that place he named after his grandfather. Yeah. Because he was Manukoza Gazikota Gaza.
So is there a battle of Soshangan?
Yes, they did. They put up a big fight against the Portuguese.
Ah.
And the Portuguese knew and respected Soshangan for that. When you read the story of Samora Machel, you will see that Samora Machel gives credit to the fact that his grandfather was involved in that battle as well. And they came from that area of Gaza.
Yeah.
They acknowledged all the battles that he had that he had been involved with, up until one of his sons, Ngungunyani, who also fought fiercely against the Portuguese until they captured and killed him and took his remains to Portugal.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
To museums.
Yeah,
and
yes.
to show the king.
I mean, really.
That we got him. I wonder whatever happened to Osama bin Laden. It's a thought for another time. Actually, that is a question. What happened to the remains of Osama bin Laden?
Yeah, really.
Because that's what they do. They kill you and they take you home and show the king.
No, that's true.
We got him.
Unbelievable.
That's crazy.
What type of evidence do you need?
You know what I mean? Well, they didn't have cell phones.
They used to take scalp first.
Yes.
That's why they would say they need your scalp.
Yeah. Crazy.
Unbelievable.
I am proud of your work. I think what you've done is incredible.
Thank you very much.
You have captured an interesting story of South Africa. I have endless questions.
Yeah.
We can talk forever,
yes, forever.
Because I read it like a textbook.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wrote notes like that.
Yeah.
And because I would read a section and say, there's a question there. How and when did the Indians come to KZN?
Yeah.
We spoke about that. You see, there it is, because it's there in your story.
True.
What is the myth of the empty land? Actually, what is the myth of the empty land? We spoke about it off before we started recording.
Yes.
What is the myth of the empty land? It's here somewhere in your book.
Yeah. No, it is a notion that people argue that when, especially the Europeans, that when they came here, they found nobody. It was an empty land, and that's why they're making claim of it.
But it's
which is what do they call it? Terra nullius, which is a far-fetched story.
That there was no one.
I mean, really. I mean, there was a guy, a historian called Holden, who says that actually the time at which the Voortrekker were moving up from the south, the Bantu people were moving closer to the south themselves. They were just moving from the north of Africa, and we hear that. But this is the greatest nonsense we've ever heard.
So they're saying the middle was empty.
Yes, because everywhere they were moving,
these ones were moving up,
these ones moving down.
So the
and they say they met around the K River.
So if you found empty land, it was yours.
It was yours. So that's the argument that this land was for the taking because there was nobody there.
The land issue is a problematic issue till today.
It's a problem.
South African
I heard
politics.
Ngogai Tobi the other day explaining how people have actually been avoiding this problem and this question of the land.
And they continue to avoid it.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Because if you were to answer it in simple terms, and you hear South Africans that are saying, one, the myth of the empty land is nonsense. There were people.
Yes.
We are 30 years into democracy. We are hundreds of years into a non-colonial setup.
Yeah.
Whose land is this? There are some that are saying, even you, Dakis are wrong to say it's your land. The Khoi were here long before you. And that debate carries on.
Right.
How do you answer that question? If you were to be in a think tank of people and you're asked that you're the guy that wrote that book, come here, you help us with this problem. What is your analysis
of the land?
Of the land issue?
You see, it depends how far back you want to go.
Okay.
But never mind how far back you can go, you'll find that African people have always been there in their different makeups. There is a story which I wrote in the first book that talks about Mvelalanga in Mpumalanga, where they talk about the African calendar, which they discovered there.
Okay.
Now, some of the things which are spoken about, they date back to about 80,000 years ago. And there were even some ancient pyramids which are there in that area. And there's another pyramid, I don't know whether you are aware of it, here in the Pretoria area, next to Tswaying.
I know Tswaying, the crater.
Yeah.
But I don't know what's around.
There's an area next to there. Actually, the Chinese are now making their place. It's got a structure of a pyramid that has been made up. You can see it's not something it's constructed by people, and it looks very old.
Wow.
And now you see that the structure, in fact, Michael Tellinger, argues that the issue of the pyramids, you can see that it's something that Africans were making, and by the time they got to Egypt, they perfected them.
Okay. So they were
making
getting
them
better and better
all the time.
Yeah.
Because Sudan has actually got more pyramids than Egypt.
What?
And now you start seeing these pyramids here in the south, because they say there's some level of some of the stones and so on that you find there next to Bova. I don't know whether you know the place in Mpumalanga they call Bova, Waterval Bova.
I know that.
Yes.
If you say it like that, it connects.
Yes.
Yes.
There are all sorts of places there, which with stones of various formations and so on, and it's inexplicable how they actually got in there. Some of those stones are so old. You hit it with an iron, it makes a metallic sound.
What?
Not a sound of a stone.
Yes.
And now this points back, which is what Tellinger says, answering the issue of the empty land. He says, when you say there was nobody here, the artifacts and the things which we find here, they date to years before man was even spoken about. And these, you can see, these are some of the things that the Africans were actually using.
There were people here.
There were people here, And we can argue about whether the Khoi and the San found some people here, because then we can start arguing where the African people originate from. Because
it becomes a complicated argument.
It becomes even more complicated.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that you look at the Khoi and the San people in their various formations, and then you look at East Africa, and you see people that look like them. The Maasai look exactly like them.
Yeah.
And even some of the stone wall writings, which, by the way, are all over Africa, you will find them. They are there some of the Arabs are trying to hide them away. In the mountains, in the Atlas, in the Akakas, in Kenya, in Uganda, the similar stone writings like the ones which you find here in the Cape and in the Northern Cape and in Namibia. So you can see that there was a lot of movement of people for many, many years.
But you almost...
it was not just a single movement downwards.
It wasn't a single movement of certain people somewhere.
Yes.
It was a cross movement of different people.
Correct.
But you can't ignore the fact that all those people were African.
Yeah, no, that's one thing which is very clear.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Not the Europeans.
No. Those are Johnny come late.
Can date when the ship first.
Yeah, absolutely. It's like you can put a date on when the Arabs came to Africa. There's a date.
Yeah. The same as the date when the ship stopped.
Absolutely.
The Portuguese entered. Yeah. The Indians came from India to KZN. You can date the Malays. You can date all of that.
Not true. But then if you don't write the history, they will write it for you.
Hey.
And you'll see that you'll start to agree that no, actually we came late.
We were not. The land was empty.
The land was empty.
The myth of the empty land.
Yes, yes.
I bought a piece of land in Pretoria.
Yeah.
In a street that already had a lot of houses built. But there was this one piece of land that was empty. Town planning had designated it for institution, church, school, that kind of thing. However, nothing happened to it. And then a company that does these auctions put it up for auction because the owners of the land says, we have this thing.
Yeah.
It has to go.
Yes, yes.
It's been 20 years almost. I bought it, big plans, building a residential, flat type setup in the township. I was hit by township politics.
Wow.
Where the people said, it's ours.
After the purchase?
Yeah. I didn't know. When I was buying it, I was happy to buy it.
Yeah.
The people said, it's ours. I said, how is it yours? I have paperwork. What do you have? They had nothing. They had one thing, though, that they gave us. They said we can take it. How? Who? Government.
Wow.
Who in government? Those people, the leaders. They came here and said you can take it. It took me 4 years of legal battles. I paid probably more than the value of the land to try to get rid of this thing.
She was.
I eventually got rid of it. Somebody else bought it.
But the problem.
Yeah, but I knew the dynamics.
Yeah.
I was quite open to describe the problem. But the point I'm making is it is that. It's it answers a number of questions that we discussed today. One is you believe a lie long enough, you'll believe it. Because the people in that street truly, truly believe that it was theirs. Collectively, I said it's impossible to own this land collectively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You never paid for it.
Yeah.
You were given by some people who said you can have it. My paperwork, transfer of the land, is the same as yours. As in, my land and yours was owned by the same person.
Yes.
When you bought it and built your house, I bought it and to build what I want.
Yeah.
What makes you think that you can just have it?
Yes.
It became such a horrible battle that it answers another question of the theory of the empty land. It's mine because I got here first.
Yeah, I got there first.
Or at least I think I got here first.
Yeah.
Then it must be mine. Fortunately, we live in a world of laws where you can do it, but it was a horrible, horrible battle.
No, true. There's a friend of mine who always says, I've got a problem with people when they ask me where I come from, and I say I come from Johannesburg. They say, no, man.
No one comes from here.
Where exactly do you come from?
Yes.
He says, so they will want to press me up until I can give them a place, but I tell them I come from here. He says, I have a problem because when white people are asked, where do you come from? He says, no, I come from here. My great-grandfather had this farm from what? He says, that's where the lie starts. They are telling you of the land which has actually taken
from someone. Yeah.
And now they started raising families and they have got generations that have lived there. Now they have got a claim to that land.
And their history begins and begins there.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Because you can easily say, same question. Where were you from before that?
No, precisely. I mean, when the N4 was being built there in Northwest, going towards Mafikeng.
Cuts across.
Yeah,
that's recent.
Across.
That's a recent project.
That's a recent project.
Yeah.
Togo Didiza was...
what was she then?
Can't remember what she was doing there, but there was also Thandi Modise, who was the premier.
Okay, yes. Premier of the Northwest.
Of the Northwest.
Yeah.
And so they wanted to make that road, and the Boers were refusing. They said, no, you can't make this road to cut across our farms.
Mm-hmm.
And so the government was getting agitated, and they said, you know what? I think let's have, you guys must bring your title deeds.
Mm-hmm. Let's see.
So that we must talk about this thing and see. We talked only to the guys who've got the title deeds, how much we must pay to do this thing. And the guys started disappearing.
Eban.
Because Havana the title
No
deeds.
paperwork.
Yes.
And they've been there for a long time.
This is the land which my grandfather stayed here, and he had DD Plaza begon met 'n klein karretjie en het so gesirkel.
Yes.
And then suddenly,
donkeys.
suddenly this is the land that belongs to him. No paperwork to prove. So suddenly government was able to make the road.
Let me tell you, an incredible road that made things so easy.
Not true. True, absolutely.
To travel from Mamelodi to Soshanguve used to be such a long road.
Sure.
And now it turns it into a 25-minute little
true,
thing.
Actually. It's true.
To travel from there to Roslyn, from Pretoria to Roslyn used to be such a long route. Now you're there in no time. Mafikeng, Rustenburg, you name it.
Yeah, true. That road is magic.
Amazing. I wish you well.
Yes, no, thank you very much.
Here it is.
Kim zilikazi kamashobani kamangete kangulukala ngazimangele kazigote kamsikamhlanga kandebele.
You can't find it at Exclusive Books. There's a politics behind that.
No, it's gonna start going now.
Really?
To Exclusive Books.
Is it going? Is that getting sorted?
It's getting sorted. Maybe in the next week or so. Bargain Books is gonna be there.
Okay.
Who am I leaving out? Almost all the big suppliers. But you can go to madibanapublishers.com.
Okay.
You can order it directly, and that one will come autographed.
Yo, listen to that. Wow. You should get it. It's an amazing, amazing book. Are you working on any other?
The next book, I'm taking maybe about a month rest. enough rest to regenerate it.
You might as well turn it into a PhD. I don't know why you don't.
There's so many people who have said that.
Yeah, you might. You might as well.
Yeah, I don't know.
You wrote it like one, like I said. You wrote it like a PhD thesis, and I think you might as well do that. It's because you put up an argument for this guy. You know, you're saying, check this story out, and here's my argument.
That's true.
Because that's what PhDs are. They're really about. You're advancing knowledge.
Yeah.
You know.
I used all their techniques, including literature review
and referencing
and comparing the literature review with what I get from the ground.
Yes.
You know, and then make the argument continuously. So.
And you've written about education. Unfortunately, this has been a 4-hour, 25-minute recording.
4 hours?
Don't even ask.
Wow.
So and we didn't stop once.
No. No, that's amazing.
We didn't even go to the toilet.
No.
That's crazy. Jesus, we could have traveled to Kimberley non-stop.
Yes, indeed.
Well, it's been a 4-hour, 25 minutes. You've written a book on education. You've traced the history of your people.
Yes.
You keep saying the book before.
Yes.
What is that?
It's called An Evolutionary Review on Black Education.
Jeez, that is the key highlights.
The book is about knowledge systems in Africa.
Okay.
And to show how African people have contributed to the knowledge systems generally. And some of which they are not getting credit for. In fact, instead it's given to the Greeks and so on.
Jeez.
So then I track that from antiquity, and I say then we arrived here, where we end up with 30% pass.
Eish.
And I say, I talk about all different people who were writing history and were writing things in Sizulu, that like we were saying earlier. So the book is mainly about that.
It's similar.
Yes.
It's tracing.
Correct. And talks about how African people were able to read stars to determine the future with the stars, the seasons for planting, season for that, and so on.
Before time was brought to us.
Yeah, absolutely. That they were masters in maths and astronomy.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
How were we introduced to Christianity?
Yeah. Who is this? Jomo Kenyatta says we were told to close our eyes and pray. And when we opened our eyes, we saw the cattle are gone. And we realized that this prayer issue is a problem.
Uh-oh.
We must pray with our eyes wide open. And he says that's where when we were giving credence to Amadlozi, we've always done it with our eyes open, and we knew what was happening.
Out.
Yes.
And now you're told.
And now you're told you must close your eyes.
So it came Kaskep.
No, Kaskep straight. Odingan at one stage, they were telling him about God and about the Bible. And at one stage, and that's why they were starting to see that these guys are not as dumb as we are saying. He said, so this God you're telling me about, is there inside this book?
Mm.
I said, no, he's not inside the book. But the book talks about him. He says, no, but how is that now?
Mm.
You are telling me that this book tells you about God and about how I can find God, but you are telling me he's not inside the book.
Mm-mm. Not there.
And this guy saw that, hey, now we got problems. This guy is asking us a practical question now. We must be able to come with some explanation of sorts.
Sure. And they couldn't.
No, they couldn't.
Wow.
They couldn't. And I mean, the people they call Amapaka, they rejected this thing of the teachings
Of the Bible.
of the Bible. They said, no, you say this, your God got killed and people crucified him. He says, no, our God, nothing can happen like that. He's so powerful. You can't capture him and kill him.
Jeez.
And this chap said, these ones are out of order. I think we must leave them.
Go try others.
Yeah, no, leave them out of the circle where we are moving.
Jar.
But let us signalate.
And it's like what you said when they were dividing, or you Lutherans go
Yes,
there, and
yes,
you Romans go
yes,
there,
yes.
go do your thing.
Mm.
Was there belief that with this book you can capture?
Yeah, well, they managed to do that to a large extent.
Yeah.
And one of the people they had a problem with was Mzilikazi.
Mm.
Because Mzilikazi said, no, you can come and preach, but I'm going to sit outside and watch. But I'm not part of that thing. But if there are people who want to join you, it's fine.
Mm.
And then they were telling him about the King of Kings, you know. And then as soon as he stood up, his subjects would rise to him, Bayete, Nkosi Yamakhosi. And
The King of Kings.
yes. And Robert Moffat was not impressed. He said, there's only one king.
Yo.
And he says, no, I can hear you. And then as soon as he goes, Bayete. And so he never joined that. And his son also the same thing. And I think, you see, one of the things that Robert Moffat was doing is that he was targeting an area which had a lot of people who were in the one settlement.
Okay.
And that's the reason he also went from Mzilikazi. Because remember, Mzilikazi was moving with a whole lot of people.
Striking with thousands of people.
But he couldn't break into Amandebele because he was not breaking into the king. Okay. So if the king had bought over this thing, it would have been easy.
Mm.
And that's what was happening in many of the places. And that's why Romaya Fora, they liked Lesotho. Because they were trying to break into Mushweshwe for a long time. Mushweshwe refused.
Mm.
And he only agreed at the time. He said, no, okay, you can come now and baptize me.
What changed his mind?
I don't know. When they came to baptize him, they found him dead.
He was, there was no point.
The guys are so frustrated.
Nthebe Molope, thank you.
A great pleasure. That
I hope this was worthwhile for you.
No,
I enjoyed it thoroughly.
It was. No, I enjoyed it. I enjoy telling the story. It's amazing because you see, like as you would have seen, you tell it and you have to knock into the other African grouping and so you end up telling, like you say correctly, the story of Southern Africa.
It's a story of Southern Africa.
Absolutely.
It's probably the greatest capture of the story of Southern Africa you'll ever find. Go check it out. King Mzilikazi, Kamashobani.
Yes, absolutely.
I loved it.
Thank you very much.
I was a little nervous about it because there's a lot of preparation that goes into these type of conversations.
Oh, yes.
And you get nervous when you're meeting someone who spent 5 years doing it and you have 2 weeks.
Yeah. Do you want subjects?
So I was quite nervous doing it, but I enjoyed it thoroughly. I said,
we did well.
I have more questions than you can begin to imagine.
You know Johnny Nash, eh?
I do.
Yeah. There are more questions than answers.
That's it. That's life, isn't it?
Yes.
That's life.
He says, the more I find out, the less I know.
Because the more you realize, you know very little.
Yes.
Thank you so much again.
A great pleasure.
King David Studio Podcast.